Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hi, there we are. So, hello. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to Global Philanthropy Forum for hosting this session. I am Latanya Matt Frett. I'm here in San Francisco, the president and CEO of Global Fund for Women. I am so excited to talk with you today on this topic, and I'll confess, I am a huge fan of Mercedes and so happy to be able to have a conversation with her today. And in the promotion of language justice, I will speak mostly in English and Mercedes will speak in Spanish. And we have Yara with us who is going to help us translate for Mercedes as she needs it. And so if you're bilingual, you're good. If you're not, then Yara is going to be the person to listen to as Mercedes speak. But let me start by setting us up for this discussion on feminist philanthropy and feminist economics, which I call the two most important things that are happening as we come out of COVID. And hopefully we'll be able to share with you during the discussion some models in practice that we can look at. But let's make this an engaging exchange. It's not just us. We'd love for you to use the chat as well as the question and answer. We love emojis. We love hearing where people are coming from. And so please, let's use those and we'll, at the end of our conversation, go to some question and answers that come from the audience. I say with incredible gratitude that I work with the Feminist Fund. Global Fund for Women offers what we call flexible support to a diverse group of partners, more than 7,000 actually, across 175 countries. We have grantee partners, we have resource partners, we have strategic partners, and all of our goals is to create meaningful change, systemic structural change that will last beyond our lifetimes. As you know, women and girls in marginalized communities, particularly those in the global south, have been particularly hard hit by the fallout of this pandemic, with the UN predicting that by the end of 2021, up to 47 million more women and girls will have fallen into extreme poverty. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. Yara and Mercedes, do you want to go on mute? Are you hearing it as well? If you mute yourselves, okay, perfect. And so I just want to repeat that again because I think it's incredibly important that the UN has predicted by the end of 2021, up to 47 million more women and girls will have fallen into extreme poverty. And that's a jump of 9% since 2019 alone. So the COVID-19 pandemic has underscored what we already know to be true. Systemic inequities are built into our world. Women, girls, and marginalized people are facing increased gender-based violence, disrupted educational opportunities, and severe economic hardships with long-term consequences for their well-being. And COVID-19 is not the only crisis communities around the world are facing right now. So Global Fund for Women is super proud to support grantee partners at the front lines of these and other crises, responding to the needs of women, girls, and gender non-conforming people who are disproportionately impacted. So we provide short-term grants to address immediate needs such as food, shelter, and security, as well as multi-year grants to help communities rebuild while addressing the root causes of gender justice. We work in 6 regions around the world, and every time I have the opportunity to sit on calls in these last months, I am profoundly inspired by the sharing of challenges that women are facing and the experience of joy that they're finding in the midst of great discomfort and change. And so that brings me to why I'm again so pleased to be joined in conversation with Mercedes D'Alessandro on our session topic of women's economic recovery post-COVID-19. So in 2020, after 5 years of analyzing the subject of gender equity in the workplace through her media outlet, Economia Feminista, Mercedes D'Alessandro became the Argentine government's first ever national director of gender equality and economy. Since then, her office published a report quantifying the economic value of unpaid care and domestic work in Argentina, 3/4 of which is carried out by women at 15.9% of GDP, more than any other sector. I want to say we knew it, but I'm so glad to have it in black and white. They have also found that men are being rehired at a much faster rate than women, determining that the gender jobless gap has quadrupled from before the pandemic. Welcome, Mercedes. Data is so central to this conversation we have to have today about building back better after COVID. I hear this time and time again from our partners. I'm thrilled to be able to speak with you today about it. But what is the data showing and what can we do about it? So my first question is really, let's start to talk about feminist economics and the new ways we're working to address gender inequalities from an economic view. You talk about gender budgets, the care economy, unpaid work, women in STEM, inequalities across the board. Can you talk to us more about that work and the space that you're in right now, Mercedes? And I'll go on mute so there's no feedback, okay?
Perfect. Thank you, Latanya. Thanks everybody to join us in this conversation. I will start speaking in Spanish, so Yara will translate for you all my opinions about this topic, but I want to start in our common language to be happy with you here. Como decía la Tania, nosotras aquí en el Ministerio de Economía de la Argentina tenemos por primera vez la oportunidad de impulsar políticas económicas feministas. Y lo tenemos justo en un momento muy importante porque la pandemia ha acrecentado las desigualdades de género estructurales que vivimos en América Latina.
As Latanya was saying, yes, here in the Ministry of Economy of Argentina, for the first time, we have had the opportunity to promote the feminist policies and to try to fight against all the causing of all the problems that have increased since the pandemic started.
Las desigualdades de género las conocen, son un tema que se ha diagnosticado mucho durante la pandemia y lo que hemos visto, como decía la Tania, es que las mujeres, los trabajadores informales, los jóvenes, son los que se han visto más afectados por el COVID, por todo lo que ha sucedido con el COVID. Y ante eso, nosotras estuvimos trabajando con el diagnóstico de la situación, con datos, con herramientas de política como son los presupuestos con perspectiva de género y también con una reformulación de las políticas públicas para que esas brechas de desigualdad que crecieron podamos empezar a cerrarlas. Es un trabajo incipiente, pero que entendemos que es muy importante, así que estamos muy contentas de poder dar este paso y también contarles algunos datos y algunas experiencias que hemos tenido el año pasado.
Yes, as Latanya was saying, yes, we're still in the process of diagnosing data and trying to set the budgets towards a gender-based economy. And we are trying to close, in fact, the gaps. And we've seen that the gaps, in fact, are starting to close. This is still a working process. We're barely beginning, but we have right now enough data and experiences that I can share with you today.
En la Argentina, después de la pandemia, encontramos que las mujeres retrocedieron en su participación económica más de 10 puntos. Esto significa que las mujeres en Argentina, después de la pandemia, volvieron a niveles del año 2002. 20 años retrocedimos en conquistas en el mercado laboral. El último año en que las economías, no solo de Argentina, sino del mundo, empezaron a recuperar su actividad, las mujeres volvieron al mercado laboral, pero de una manera mucho más lenta que los varones. Y aquí lo que nosotras encontramos como una explicación de esta recuperación más lenta es lo que llamamos la economía de los cuidados, y que es lo que les voy a contar en un minuto.
Yes, in Argentina, after the pandemic, we saw that when the pandemic started, we saw that the participation of women actually went down 10 points. We're back 20 years in terms of the participation of women in the work market. Since the numbers that we're seeing, they are resembling what we had in 2002. Even last year, when the economies started to recover slowly and all the people started to get inserted again into the workforce, women were always slower than men to be able to get into the economic uplift. And this is what I will start to talk about, the reasons of why this happened. It has to do with what I called the home caring economics.
La economía de los cuidados le llamamos a las tareas que se realizan al interior de los hogares: lavar, planchar, cocinar, cuidar a los niños, a las niñas, a algún adulto mayor. Esas tareas recaen asimétricamente sobre las mujeres, y en la pandemia, en donde muchos países han hecho lockdowns, han cerrado las actividades, han cerrado las escuelas, los espacios, los kindergarten, los espacios de cuidado, los niños se quedaron adentro de la casa mucho tiempo. Esto incrementó la cantidad de trabajo para estas mujeres, y ese trabajo de cuidado fue una competencia muy grande con el trabajo fuera del hogar, sea en una escuela, en un comercio, en una fábrica, en un hospital. Esa recarga del trabajo de cuidados en el hogar hizo que muchas mujeres tuvieran que abandonar el mercado laboral, sobre todo las mujeres que son madres, es decir, las que tienen hijos pequeños en sus hogares, que no pudieron restablecer de alguna manera una compatibilidad entre su trabajo en el hogar y el trabajo de modo remunerado. Y eso es algo que existía antes. Había una crisis de los cuidados, ya existía previo a la pandemia, y con la pandemia fue tan grande que implosionó el mercado laboral de las mujeres y las obligó a retirarse, y eso es lo que hoy estamos encontrando como el gran obstáculo para volver frente a una incertidumbre, porque la pandemia no ha terminado, porque muchas economías no acceden a la vacunación y siguen enfrentándose al virus. Este es un obstáculo que para nosotras ha sido un diagnóstico central para empezar a pensar todo el abanico de políticas para transformar esta situación.
The situation that we have faced in terms of the home care and the burden of the task that women had to face after the pandemic with the lockdown in progress, women that need to do the home caring in terms of the laundry, taking care of the kids, taking care of the elderly in the house, and all house chores, being in charge of the supermarket and all these tasks really put an enormous burden into the women that were in the workforce, because aside from their work, they also had to take care of their house and do all the increasing home care, which includes, with the lockdown, the closing of the schools, and the children are suddenly now at home, and they have to take care of the children at home and take care of the homeschooling also at home, at the same time that they have the burden of all the house chores that they had before. So in some cases, because these home care tasks are so high, some women were overloaded with all these tasks, and they were forced to abandon the jobs in which they were earning money. So because they couldn't make it compatible to the tasks that they were faced in home, and to also be available to have a job in which there were earnings. So this has become a crisis of the home care force that we need to see in terms of the whole umbrella of problems that this has caused over the women, and the reasons why these women are facing double challenges because of the pandemic.
And Mercedes, what are some of the plans that the Argentina government has to address some of this? I know that there must be some policies that they're thinking will help to hopefully tide this phenomena, but also maybe there's some support that's being offered from the government.
Sí, Latania. El tener un espacio para pensar políticas de género nos permitió utilizar el presupuesto nacional. El presupuesto es la herramienta que tiene el Estado para planificar los próximos años, ¿no? Cómo orienta sus recursos, el dinero, en qué lo va a gastar. Cuando nosotras planteamos este diagnóstico que acabo de comentar, nos ayudó a poner prioridades en el esquema de gasto del Estado. Entonces tenemos dos prioridades básicas. Una, fortalecer los cuidados, y fortalecer los cuidados es amplio. Quiere decir que necesitamos que las mujeres que se han quedado sin trabajo tengan ingresos, ¿no? Que los niños y niñas que viven en hogares con estas madres pobres, con estas madres que se han quedado sin ingresos, con estas madres que se han quedado con trabajo o que han tenido que disminuir su tiempo de trabajo, tengan determinado dinero. Y eso lo hemos hecho con transferencias en efectivo. Pero además, pensando en cuando ellas puedan volver al trabajo, necesitan un espacio para cuidado, entonces, junto al Ministerio de Obras Públicas, que es quien se ocupa de infraestructura, hemos desarrollado programas de infraestructura de cuidados. Infraestructura de cuidados significa construir jardines, clubes, espacios de sociabilización para los niños y niñas, para que cuando las madres puedan volver al mercado laboral, esos niños tengan dónde quedarse y además las personas que trabajan en estos lugares sean mejor pagas, estén revalorizadas sus tareas. Entonces, por un lado, trabajamos en fortalecer la infraestructura de cuidados y cuando Yara les cuente esto, vuelvo con lo otro.
Okay, what we have been trying to do in the government is just setting a place for the politics of gender. This means working with the national budget, which is the tool that the government has to be able to direct these funds into the places that are needed. When we did the diagnosis, this helped us in two ways. And the first one, it established priorities to strengthen the part of the caretaking that was needed for these jobless women that were left without an income and they had their children at home. So first we started by doing cash transfers to these people that were the most needy ones. And we also went back to work with the Ministry of Public Works, in which we established that we needed an infrastructure to set up infrastructures of childcare facilities and spaces where these people that needed a place to have their children so they could go back to work, they could have them somewhere that they would be safe and they would be cared for while they went back to work. So we also wanted these women who went back to work to be able to have better wages, to be offered better opportunities than they had before. So this is what we're working on right now.
Y el segundo camino, que para mí es el más importante, es que los economistas en general, cuando pensamos en una recuperación económica, siempre se piensa en construcción, tecnología, industria, energía, transporte, sectores que emplean mucha mano de obra, porque eso es lo que permite que las familias tengan un salario, con ese salario puedan comer y satisfacer sus necesidades y la economía empiece a crecer nuevamente. Sobre todo en economías como las latinoamericanas, que son economías con algunos sesgos productivos. Pero ¿qué pasa en estos sectores? Estos sectores, la mayor parte del empleo que producen es para varones. Es decir, cuando hablamos de construcción, el 97% de los trabajadores son varones. En tecnología, la mayoría son varones. En industria, la mayoría son varones y así todos los sectores que mencioné. Entonces, para nosotras es muy importante que aprovechemos este cambio que estamos transitando con la pandemia para incorporar a las mujeres a estos sectores que son los que no solamente generan empleo, sino que también diseñan nuestro futuro. Tenemos que ser partícipes de la construcción, este rebuild better que hablamos, esto de construir el nuevo mundo que queremos, tiene que ser con las mujeres participando en estos sectores históricamente masculinizados, y por eso también estamos trabajando para generar incentivos en la formación de las mujeres desde muy jovencitas, las carreras STEM, para que cuando estudian y tienen niños puedan compatibilizar con los cuidados que mencionaba, y para que además generemos espacios de trabajo en los cuales ellas se sientan libres y puedan crecer, y en esto estamos premiando a las empresas que contratan mujeres y personas travestis y trans para que puedan tener mejores oportunidades y puedan desarrollarse más fácilmente. Entonces son dos vías: el fortalecimiento de la estructura de cuidados del país para mejorar las posibilidades de las mujeres, sobre todo las que tienen personas a cargo, y en segunda instancia, el hacer que las mujeres avancen en espacios de trabajo masculinizados.
Okay, people, the second path that I was talking about, the second work that we're doing as economists, we always think in terms of the economic recovery in construction, in technology, in energy, transportation. All these activities are things that generate recovery for the economy and generate a lot of need for manpower and generate work in the labor force. However, all these sectors that I've spoken about, especially technology, construction, and energy, they're mostly oriented towards work that is generated for men, not women. So what we're trying to see is to have to take advantage of this pandemic situation that has generated these changes worldwide, to incorporate women into these sectors that are usually men directed, that are not usually given, the opportunities are not usually given to women. So when we're thinking about rebuilding a new world, we're actually talking about these incentives for STEM careers in which women should also be seen as compatible for these types of work and with their caretaking, and to generate spaces for them to be incorporated and to grow. And so in this term, as I was saying before, the first thing is to have the strengthening of the caretaking in terms of the infrastructure of the daycare facilities, of the nurseries, and all the stuff that I spoke about before. And also at the same time, to generate these spaces for women to develop and grow to better careers and better employment, and to have equality as men.
And so this is perfect. And, there is never just one way to sort of get at what is going to be required for us to build back our economies, especially for women, feminist economies. But we do know, and we've seen research, we've seen it in Argentina, that broad-based social movements, especially those where feminists are right at the front of them, do have this opportunity for long-term sort of systemic change, right? So what do you think, we're here at Global Philanthropy Forum, what do you see as the role that philanthropy has to play in pushing forward feminist movements so they can make change, gender economic equity, a real change happen in Argentina and Latin America, all over the world?
Muchas gracias, Latania, porque esa pregunta para el caso de Argentina es central. Argentina tiene uno de los movimientos feministas más fuertes y más vitales del mundo, de América Latina. Bueno, somos así entusiastas, pero lo cierto es que en los últimos años hemos conquistado el aborto legal, seguro y gratuito en nuestro país, que había sido una lucha de muchas décadas. Hay en Latinoamérica solamente Uruguay, la Ciudad de México y Cuba, y hoy Argentina tienen aborto legal, es decir, en todos los demás es clandestino, y eso arroja la muerte y a problemas de salud a muchísimas mujeres, y eso se ha conquistado con el movimiento feminista. También el espacio que hoy ocupo y el Ministerio de las Mujeres, Géneros y Diversidad han sido logros del movimiento feminista argentina. Este movimiento feminista siempre se ha sostenido sobre la fuerza militante, sobre mujeres que realmente están comprometidas con transformar la realidad y sobre todo que han podido acceder a esfuerzos de fondos filántropos como el que hoy se juntan en este foro. ¿Por qué? Porque en Latinoamérica las luchas sociales en general provienen de las personas con menos recursos, de las personas más pobres, más vulnerables, más lejanas a los centros de poder y de dinero. Entonces, el poder contar con recursos no es solamente una posibilidad concreta de dedicarle tiempo a estas cosas, sino también de conversar a lo largo y a lo ancho de los distintos de las distintas provincias dentro de Argentina, en distintos países dentro de Latinoamérica, de participar quizás en reuniones o en foros como esto, escuchar otras experiencias, intercambiar, poder publicar un libro, una página web. Yo vengo de una experiencia de activismo antes de ser una funcionaria del gobierno de la Argentina. Fundé una ONG, una organización sin fines de lucro, mediante la cual, junto con organizaciones como Oxfam, por ejemplo, logramos hacer muchísimas actividades y sin esos fondos filantrópicos, sin el apoyo de estos fondos, nosotras no hubiésemos podido desarrollar nuestra perspectiva, nuestras ideas y nuestro movimiento. Con lo cual, para mí es fundamental que hoy, frente a los desafíos que nos deja la pandemia, que son desafíos económicos, las mujeres están empobrecidas, como decías, Tania, al principio, tenemos millones de niñas y de jóvenes que están en la pobreza, necesitamos muchísimo activismo y movilización para que eso sea un objetivo, y eso es un objetivo económico. Hoy necesitamos ampliar derechos, pero además también cerrar brechas digitales, que tengan una computadora, que tengan un teléfono celular, que tengan comida, que puedan tener educación, que puedan tener sueños. Y para eso realmente necesitamos que esto sea un eje de toda la sociedad. Y el activismo y el feminismo ahí tienen un trabajo gigantesco para poder juntar esas fuerzas que tanto necesitamos.
Yes, this question that you have just asked me in terms of the systemic change and the role of philanthropy and the feminist movements is crucial for Argentina. Argentina is one of the countries that I would kindly say that we have the highest feminist movement in Latin America. We have just been able to achieve the legal, safe, and free abortion in our country, which is something that only few countries have in Latin America. Uruguay, Mexico City, and Cuba are the only countries that have legal, safe, and free abortion. And the rest of the countries, unfortunately, abortion is done in a clandestine manner and causing the deaths and the problems for women in all places. Also, we have also accomplished a lot in terms of gender and diversity, and it has been conquered really by Argentina, by women that have had access to these philanthropic resources. And because unfortunately, the women that are most affected are the poorest women. And so with these resources, we have been able to really do the cross-cutting to different countries, to reach the web, to publish books, to do all the things that support our movement. And even before I became a government official, I must say I used to work in an NGO in which we did a lot of work that pushed forward this feminist movement. We worked, for example, with Oxfam, and we did a lot of work. We were able to achieve a lot of our objectives because, especially with this pandemic, women are in poverty and they need to have access to better livelihoods. And this is the importance of this activism, of this mobilization, and to have this established as an economic objective. And so that women can have access to all the technology in terms of having computer, having access to education, having access to their dreams. And should be the main axis of the economies of all countries.
I know that is just wonderful. We're right at time, Mercedes. We want to thank you so much. And I want to say one of the things you said is that the pandemic may have sown the seeds of a major transformation for women in the economy if advocates can stay energized. And so I am thankful to the energy that you bring to this work every day. I'm thankful to the Global Philanthropy Forum and the work that it's doing. And I hope that we have answered the questions that I've seen so far. And again, just thank you very much for keeping up the work, for doing all that you do every day. And Global Fund for Women is a partner in life. And certainly as we come out of this economy, let's build it better for women, girls, and non-trans women around the world. So thank you again. That's our time. So we'll have to go now.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
And thank you, Yara, for your translation. Much thanks.